Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about our engagement. I know that you're probably all sick and tired of hearing me talk about the engagement, especially if you follow me on Instagram, which if you don't, you should follow me on Instagram. You're probably all sick and tired of hearing me talk about it, but there's things I haven't shared, and also I just feel like it would be really wrong to create a whole series on this channel about our wedding, about the wedding planning, and leave out the engagement bit. So if you've heard this before, it is what it is. And if you haven't heard this before, hello, my name's Bianca. I'm engaged to be married. We're planning a 2025 spring wedding, and this is the story of how we got engaged. And you're gonna hear possibly the greatest evidence as to why I have like no more than 2 brain cells to rub together, because I don't know how I didn't see it coming in hindsight, but I really didn't. And so I guess I'll kick off by answering that question. People ask all the time, like, it's the first thing they ask, like, oh my God, did you know? Did you know that it was gonna happen? I knew that it was gonna happen. Like, we talked about getting engaged, we talked about being married. I really firmly believe that your engagement, like getting engaged, should never be like a surprise. You should never be like super surprised that they're proposing, do you know what I mean? But I really didn't expect it at all in that moment, on that trip. I was none the wiser. Mark actually thought that I'd caught on, and I'll get into that, because it's honestly like it's a bit ridiculous, but I really honestly truly did not know at all that it was going to happen on that trip until the very moment that it happened. So let me take you way back. Mark and I actually met on Tinder in 2017. So this year, as I'm filming, it's our 6th year of our relationship, with like a bit of a weird year in between, but we still count it as us being in a relationship because it was just kind of complicated. He went traveling, we broke up for a bit, then he came back, we fixed things. That was that. And all of our entire relationship, I said to him that I would want to be engaged by our not by our 5th anniversary, but like within our 5th year of a relationship. Because to me, I've always arbitrarily thought that, you know, if you haven't decided after 5 years, if you still haven't figured out whether or not you want to marry me, like I don't know what to tell you. So I'd always kind of like half jokingly said that. And so I was convinced all of last year, anytime we went anywhere, did anything, all of last year, I was convinced it was going to happen. The sheer like anxiety of it all, like overthinking, is it gonna happen? Overthinking, why isn't it happening? Overthinking at any time one of my friends got engaged, and I was like, God, like, it's supposed to happen this year. Why isn't it happening this year? I had just become really married to the idea of getting engaged 5 years into a relationship. And obviously it didn't happen. I really had to have a sit down with myself and be like, you need to chill out. You just need to chill out. You're being crazy. And it wasn't like I was being aggy about it. I wasn't pressuring him into it. I don't think he even knows that all of last year I was like, ugh. But all of last year, I was expecting it. And it honestly like ruined so many nice days. So many days that would have otherwise been really nice were just covered by this like, is it gonna happen? It didn't happen. Anxiety. And yeah, at the end of the year, I just told myself like, that's it. You're just gonna chill out now. It is going to happen. Eventually. We've talked about it at length. We talk about it frequently. I know it's happening. I just don't know when, and I'm going to just stop expecting it. And it's important that you know that for what I'm about to tell you next. So we talk about engagements, marriage, a lot, especially because so many of our friends in this stage of life that we're in now, people are in around our age, are all getting engaged. They're all getting married, buying houses, having babies. And so there's always something to talk about. There's always like, oh, so-and-so bought an engagement ring, so-and-so is proposing, so-and-so has proposed. Like, we talk about it a lot. And so it wasn't weird to me when he outright asked me what my ring size was. So at the start of this year, we planned a trip to Azores in Portugal. I'm Portuguese, that's where I'm from. And I'd never been to the Azores Islands, so we planned a trip to go there and then go see my family in Lisbon afterwards. So it was like a half and half kind of trip. That should have been like my first, like, maybe. But I was fully not expecting it. I think this happened about 2 weeks before our trip, although Mark suggests that it was much earlier than that. I don't know that it was. I swear, in my mind, it was like 2-3 weeks before we were due to go away. It wasn't a long time before, but he says otherwise. Honestly, I don't really remember, but someone I know got engaged, and unfortunately the guy got the ring size like really wrong, and it was really big, so much so that she like couldn't wear it. And so we were commenting on that, just like, oh, like, yeah, like he just couldn't figure out the size of her ring, so he like took a guess, and like, it is what it is. And through that conversation, he said, well, out of curiosity then, what's your ring size? And it was so natural in that conversation. It was like, to me, it wasn't fishy that he was asking. It was just, you know, it was part of the conversation that we were having. So I went into our bedroom, into my jewelry box, and I picked out a ring that fit my ring finger. I took it into the office with me. We measured it and like looked online to try and figure out like what size it was. And we landed on a size. And he was like, okay, yeah, good to know. Because, you know, we talk about these things, we make jokes about it all the time. Like, it's not like that. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, it was just like, you know, Mark being Mark. So that was that. That was it. And he thought maybe I was a bit obvious, but I was like, not really. I was not even there. And I remember my friends asking me like, oh, do you think he's going to propose on this trip? And I said these exact words. I said, you know what? It would be really nice if he did, because then he would have proposed like in my home country, and then we get to go home and see my family, and like, that's really sweet. But I really don't think it's on this trip. I really honestly, hand on my heart, I did not think it was going to be on this trip. I thought maybe at some point this year we're due to go back to Ireland, and you know, in that trip we're going to start looking at houses and like talking about like mortgage stuff. And so I was like, maybe he'll do it in Ireland. I started thinking that maybe he was waiting until we moved and that he would want to do it somewhere special to him in Ireland. So I really let go of the thought. I was like, it might happen tomorrow, but honestly it might not happen this year. And so for that reason, I wasn't really reading into things. I was actively not reading into things. There was one thing that I thought was fishy. But I very quickly let it go, which was at some point between him asking me about my ring size and us going on this trip, there was one morning where he woke up and he said, I've taken the morning off work, I'm just gonna go for a walk. And I thought, that's weird. That's not really something he does. He's not a take a walk person unless he's walking the dog, or unless he's like really stressed out and there's like something mental health wise that's like just really like stressful or whatever. Like, unless something's wrong, he's not a take a walk kind of guy. And nothing was wrong. And I was just like, that's weird. But again, I didn't look into it. I was like, I'm just gonna let it go. It is what it is. And he went on his walk and he came back and that was it. So then we get to the trip and we left early in the morning. Our flight was delayed on the way there. So it wasn't even delayed. It was like they changed our flight situation. So we didn't really know. It was just kind of a stressful morning. I wasn't paying a ton of attention to like what he was packing, what I was packing. Like, everything was just in a bag and we were like, it'll be fine. So we just needed to get to the airport. We got to the airport. His bag had to be searched, which now I'm like, oh God, like what if I'd gone and stood next to him? But I didn't. I was doing my own bags. I was getting the rest of his bags that didn't have to be searched. And I was like sort of putting toiletries back in the right place and like, you know, doing all of the airport stuff, whilst he was off having his back surgery. So we get to Azores, we pick up our rental car, we drive to our Airbnb, we settle in, have dinner, go to bed, and we are looking in the cameras, because if you ever go to Azores, the weather is like a microclimate in every little like place. So there's loads of cameras set up throughout the countryside where you can log in online and see what the weather is like in each specific like tourist location. Little tip for you there. So one of the things that we really wanted to do on the trip and wanted to get out of the way as quickly as possible, as soon as we found like a window of opportunity with good weather to do it, was a place called Lagoa do Fogo, which is a volcanic crater. It's an active volcano, but it's just a big lake, and it's got a cool like hiking trail, and you can like go down the mountain, up the mountain. Like, we really wanted to do that. So we looked in the morning at the cameras and we saw that it was good weather. We were like, right, we gonna do this. So we drive to the place and I'm like taking videos. I'm like, oh, this is lovely. I had a tripod with me that Mark thought was suspicious. Mark thought that because I'd taken a tripod that I was expecting it, but actually I bought that tripod for that trip because I thought we're gonna want pictures, because like we're never, like, when do you visit volcanoes? When do you visit active volcanoes and go to this place? So I really wanted to get like pictures, and so I had this tripod with me. And so we went on this hike, and I complained the entire way down. I was just moaning the entire time because my foot hurt so bad. I hurt my ankle days before we went away, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was just sore. It really hurt to walk, but I wanted to do all these hikes anyway. I wasn't going to pass up on them, so it is what it is. I'm just gonna be in pain. So I was walking down this trail, literally every other step going, ow, ow, ow. I don't know how he puts up with me. I don't know how I put up with myself, okay? But I was moaning the entire way. Anyway, we get down to the lake, and there's these beaches. We're getting attacked by seagulls who are like protecting their nests, and they're flying over us and trying to like scare us away. So we found this one little beach. The seagulls said no. So we sort of went round a corner where the beach was a little bit more secluded. Like, people up from the viewpoint couldn't see down to where we went. So we went round the corner, which was quite nice. And then I was like, oh, let's get a photo here. And it was me who suggested it. So it wasn't fishy to me in that moment. It was like, oh, like, we found this really secluded place for the beach. There's no one here. This will be nice for photos. So I set up the little tripod. The tripod had a little remote so that we could like take pictures whilst standing far away. And yeah, so I set it up. The entire time that I was setting up, he was fumbling with the bag. And I was just like, what is he looking for? But again, it like, in that moment, there was like a little flutter of something, but even then I was like, no, I'm not gonna get my hopes up for that. Like, that's silly. Like, he's probably just looking for something. So I'm setting up the tripod. He comes and stands next to me. We're taking a couple of pictures, and then he takes the remote off me, walks towards the camera, and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna turn it to, we'll just get some like landscape photos. I was like, okay, great. But he took the remote, and I was like, well, anyway. So he's got the remote, and he's obviously taken it away because he's swapping the camera to video because he wants to get it on video. And if I click it, then I turn it off. So he took the remote away, went up to the thing, sort of like turned it and then turned it back because it was already on landscape. The more I think about it. So anyway, he goes up to the tripod, switches it to video. I haven't got my contact lenses in, and I have terrible eyesight, so it's so far away I cannot see what he's doing on that screen. He does the thing, turns it on, comes back, and then we start posing for photos, and I'm like looking for the remote. So I give him a little kiss, and in that moment I felt him like lower, and I was like, it was the shock of my life. I really, honestly, truly, in that exact moment, did not expect it. And then everything clicked. Everything clicked. I was like, all this time I've been telling myself to not read into things, to just chill out, and I missed it as a result. which actually I think is quite nice. And that was it. He asked me to marry him. I said yes. I will include the video here.
Oh, shut up! Are you kidding me?
Can you marry me?
Oh my god. Oh. You're gonna put it on me. You're gonna put it on me.
My hands are fucking...
Who knew? Oh, I'm gonna need to sit down.
So it was really sweet. The first question that came to mind was who knew? Like, who did you tell? Because I was like, does my family know? Do your friends know? Like, who did you tell? Who did you plan this with? And my friends absolutely had no idea. He'd only told his best friend and his therapist. So it was a surprise for everyone. And then I thought about keeping it to ourselves for a little bit. And, you know, because in a few days we were due to go back home and see my family. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll hold off and I'll get home and just be like, but then I couldn't hold it in. So we ended up just, I created a group chat with my family, like everyone, my mum, my dad, my stepdad, my brother, his wife, my grandma. And I was like, oh, I'm just making a group chat. Because they were buzzing that I was going to this place. They love the Azores Islands, and so they were so excited that I was getting to go. And they were like, send us all the photos. So anyway, I created this group chat to say like, oh, like just to send you photos. And then I was like, look at this view. And I dropped the video, and everyone just went mental. It was really, really sweet. And honestly, the like engagement bubble is so real. People had talked about it. But obviously I'd never been engaged before, and it lasted, I don't even know, it lasted like a month maybe for us. That whole just like engagement bubble where everything's brand new and it's all we talk about and it's all anyone else talks about around us and asks us about. It's kind of like past now, it's old news now. But yeah, it's just been like a really sweet time. And planning a wedding has been fun. But we'll talk more about that. Before we move on to wedding talk, though, in the next few videos, I'm going to take you through our wedding mood board, our entire mood board. I'm going to take you through my bridal mood board. We're going to look at some dresses together. I know people tend to keep these things to themselves and they want everything to be a surprise. I'm not really that person. I'm an oversharer. I want to talk about things. I want to hear about what you guys did for your weddings, what you think about traditions and stuff like that. There's so many things, like traditional things that we are just not doing because we don't want to. So we're going to talk all about that, and it's going to be great. I'm so excited to like share this season of life with all of you and hear about your weddings. But before we do all of that, I want to touch on something that I learned, because I feel like this entire journey, like getting engaged, was the first step towards all these other life things that we've wanted to do together. We really want to be married. We really want to buy a house. We really want to have children. And for us, the order of things that made sense for us, not because it's the right way or because it's traditional, but because it's what will work and be most convenient for us, is buy a house, get married, have kids, in that order. Because buying a house means we get to move to the country where we want to have the wedding and already be in that country when we're having the wedding. And then we want a honeymoon without children. That is the only reason why we're keen to have kids after we're married, is we really want to do this honeymoon, this trip to Japan that we want to do. We want to do it without kids. We want to do it without me being pregnant. So, that's the reasoning behind that. There's really not much more to it, but I feel like I waited a really long time to get engaged, and I put a lot of like weight on being engaged, maybe because society tells you to, and I've been conditioned to by the world that we live in, and I measure my self-worth based on like where I'm at in life according to the timeline that my parents had, and you know, all those like societal things. But I also just really wanted to be engaged because I love him and because I didn't want to be his girlfriend anymore. Like, I wanted to move forward. I really thrive on progress in all areas of my life, be it my career, be it my home, be it my relationships, anything. I thrive on progress. And when I felt like we weren't making progress, I became very like antsy. And like, I really wanted this to happen so that we could move on to do all these other exciting things, you know? Once we're engaged, that means we're planning a wedding, which means we're planning a move, which means we're, you know, on the way to having kids. And that's something I really want. Like, my uterus is screaming, you know what I mean? And so getting engaged was more than just like, oh, like the love of my life wants to spend the rest of his life with me. That's really meaningful and sweet and amazing and like, you know, such an exciting time. It also meant all these other things were now like on the way to happening. But I feel like there was a switch that happened in my brain at the end of last year after mentally ruining so many nice moments that we could have had in my head because I was expecting this to happen and then it didn't. There was something that I heard someone say, and I don't remember who it was. I was talking about, you know, wanting to be engaged and wanting to be married and like, oh, all my friends are doing all these things and it's so happy to like celebrate them. But like, I can't wait until it's my turn also. And they said, you know, how nice is it though that you have all these things to look forward to? Like, nothing's behind you. Everything's ahead of you. And it just like clicked in my head. I was like, oh my God, someday it's gonna happen. He's gonna propose, he's gonna get down on one knee, he's gonna propose. And I will either have been miserable in the lead up to that, or I will have really enjoyed it. You know? I can either choose to look forward to this thing that is going to happen, or I can agonize over the fact that it hasn't happened yet. I just realized like I'm doing this to myself. I'm completely doing this to myself. He could get down on one knee tomorrow and I would have spent the last year agonizing and looking forward to it, but in this really negative, like anxious way. Whereas what I really want to be doing is just enjoying my time with him in this relationship, in the stage that we're in now, in the season that we're in now. Enjoy my life where I'm at. You know, I looked forward to living in Brighton so much. All my time that I spent in London, I spent agonizing over getting to Brighton. And now I'm in Brighton and I'm agonizing about getting engaged and moving away. That's not how I want to live. So that's it. That's the story. And I hope that this encourages you. If you are in a position of waiting right now, you want to be engaged, you're waiting for your partner to propose, and it's not something that like you want to do yourself, if you don't want to propose yourself and you're just waiting for this to happen, I hope this encourages you to just look forward to it rather than agonize over the fact that it hasn't happened yet, because it's all ahead of you. So that's it. That's the engagement story. That's everything. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're engaged yourself, please leave me a comment and let me know how it went down, who did it, when was it? I want to know everything. Did you know? Did you have a feeling, or was it a complete surprise for you as well? Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Give this video a little thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I will see you next week for a declutter video. We're gonna declutter all of my skincare and makeup products. We're just gonna really axe it all out. So I'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out with me. I love you all very much and have a good rest of your week. Bye.